Hey everyone, welcome back. I know this isn't a topic that many of you enjoy, but I'm kinda getting low on stories again, so I decided to just switch it up and do something a little different. I won't be doing stories like this all the time, just every now and then. For those of you who don't mind paranormal stories, I hope you enjoy this one. As always, you can send any story you have at southerncannibal.com. Without any more interruptions, let's go ahead and get started. And remember to always stay hungry. My name is Maddie, and this is my story. This is a story that I'm still not entirely sure about. I've racked my brain in every way trying to come up with the explanation. I can't help but feel like something followed me home that week. When I was 13, my mom's coworker had a daughter who needed a babysitter for her 3 kids. I'll call her Kelly. She had 3 young children who were around 8, 5, and 3. They're not super relevant to this story. Kelly lived nearly a block away from me, so it was easy enough to walk there and back since I hadn't been at the age to start driving. Nothing ever happened with the kids, as I normally babysat them after school before their dad came home, which was around 4 to 5 p.m. However, the story happened in their house when they weren't home. There were 2 separate occasions before this happened. The kids had a little TV set up in the basement with their various toys. One time I went to get one of the kids and had the most gut-sinking feeling going into the basement. I can't explain it. The other time I babysat for them while they went to a football game. I couldn't help but shake the feeling someone or something was watching me. I was terrified, and I had a friend stay on the phone with me. I swore that I wouldn't go back. Now, for the story, Kelly had texted me saying they were leaving town for a week and asked if I could come by in the morning and in the evening just to feed and let out their 2 dogs. I agreed since I wouldn't have to spend much time there. Kelly had given me the code for the door. Immediately on the first day when I walked into the house, it reeked of rotten eggs, like something was left to die. I let the dogs out and fed them, and everything was fine. I walked past the basement and couldn't help but feel sick. I couldn't even open the door to look in. The second and third day were fine as well, as the smell seemed to disappear. I really didn't have an explanation for it. On this day, however, the puppy whom they had stay in the kennel refused to go back in. She simply sat barking at nothing. I literally had to forcefully pick her up and then put her in the kennel. On the 4th day, I was outside with the dogs letting them do their business when it sounded like something fell over in the basement. I was sitting in the living room waiting for the dogs. That was enough for me. I brought the dogs in and swear that I heard footsteps approaching. I was about to call 911. But first I had called my dad, as he had headed over and peered into the basement to see absolutely nothing. I couldn't sleep. I was having nightmares about that house and being trapped in the basement. I also told my friend about it, who's very superstitious and into the supernatural, and she advised me to bring salt. I did so, and on the last day I felt that horrible feeling, and then that smell came back stronger than ever. I quickly fed the dogs and didn't look back. Once again, I couldn't sleep, having nightmares of being locked in the basement with no way out. I dreamed of a little boy who was in the basement with me, begging me to help him escape. After a few days later, I was walking up the stairs of our home, my sister behind me. She asked me what the hell happened to my neck. Confused, I had asked her what she meant. I had 6 long diagonal scratches down my neck. I had no idea where it came from. That feeling of being watched came over me again. A few nights after, my sister and I were talking at the dining room table. She told me that she felt like she was being watched in the basement and that the temperature seemed to fluctuate. Things seemed to go missing. I had felt the same things, but I never told her so. I then talked to my aforementioned friend, and she suggested saging and salting the house. I did so, and the feelings went away. I had this weird feeling about going to a graveyard near my house, so I googled graveyard etiquette. I left pennies and then carefully wandered the cemetery. A weird flash of relief came over me as I had found a grave with a school picture. The little boy from my dream. He died in 2001, the same year I was born. That night I had a dream. The little boy and I were walking on the beach, and he then said, "Thank you for not forgetting about me. I knew you wouldn't. I'm really sorry that this seems all over the place. I'm 22 years old now, and I have no intention of ever going near Kelly's house again. As for our own house, everything has been calm since. I don't know if I believe in the supernatural, but I do know that something is not right in that house." This all happened in 2011 when I was living in Lemoore, California. Now, I'm very skeptical whenever it comes to the paranormal. I do believe in it, but I still look for logical explanations before jumping to such conclusions. But having lived in that house and with all the shared experience, I cannot deny that the house was in fact haunted. These are compiled experiences from me and my family. First, here's some background. This all took place in a 2-story duplex, and almost every night the neighbor's kid who was at least 4 years old would cry bloody murder every night. My parents would be the first to know because their room was separated by a thin wall. The neighbors tried to calm him down, but it never worked to where they had a child psychologist visit twice a week. Yeah, that didn't work either. It was so frequent that it basically forced our neighbors to move away after just 4 months of being there. The very first encounter came from my mom. My dad went on a business trip, and how it goes is, it was around midnight. While my mom was taking a shower, she had heard a loud commotion outside the bathroom. She assumed it was me and my siblings making a racket during the late hours. She yelled and told whoever was making the loud commotion to go back to bed. It all went quiet, and what followed was the hardest and loudest bangs on the bathroom door. She rushes and opens the door to find the room completely empty and the house quiet. The same unexplainable occurrence happened 2 more times that year. Some days later, after a long day out of the house, we all came back to see a number of kitchen utilities and dishes broken and scattered across the kitchen floor like someone broke in and just smashed everything up. However, the house was locked up and no door was broken. I would assume this next encounter from my dad to just be sleep paralysis, but to this day, my dad thinks it was something else. So my mom would sometimes while she was sleeping feel a heavy weight like someone was on top of her. She'd sometimes assume my dad was laying up against her, but she'd later find herself alone in the room or my dad still on the opposite side of the bed. Anyways, so one night my dad wakes up, not really entirely conscious at first. He has a weird feeling and turns to see a figure standing at the foot of my mom's side of the bed. My dad had described it to be very tall and thin, and how bright and visible the eyes of the figure were. The figure was at first looking at my dad, before then turning to stare at my mom, and then the figure would sidestep closer and closer to my mom, still looking at her. My dad couldn't get up, and he said the only thing he could do was growl at it. The figure stopped and looked at him, and would still sidestep closer. My dad growled at it one more time, and it stopped, turned around, and then walked out of the room. Whether that was sleep paralysis or not, it spooked my dad enough to where he had started making plans to move to different housing. The next one happened to me. I was sleeping on a bunk bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night to see my closet door open, when I remember it being closed and empty. It wasn't clear, but I saw a highlighted face in the closet. What it looked like was the face of Mad magazines. I woke up my brother who was on the top bunk, and I asked him if he saw it too, which he did. I knew then that it wasn't just my mind messing with me, and I remember seeing its eyes fixate from me to my brother and then back to me. We quickly ran out of the room to get our parents, who came back to see the closet empty. My dad didn't get mad because he himself was also spooked from his own experience, and that night really did speed up the moving process. We left to another neighborhood with no encounters until the very last night, where my little brother screamed bloody murder in the middle of the night, saying that he saw a head peer out of his closet. I'd never seen him to this day that petrified. We went to a hotel that night, and we never went back to that house, and I never want to again. I don't know how relevant this one story is, but my brother brought back an old noose buried in a large dirt field. After a while, he had managed to undo the knot and tied the rope onto the tree in our front yard as a swing. I also later found out that the area where he uncovered it was once a prison in the early 1900s, so maybe they're associated. But bottom line, the house in the area has a history, and whatever was in that house, if it really was a ghost, it was not the good kind. When I was 16, my mom was searching for a house to rent, and she had stumbled upon this elderly couple who was renting out a 2-story, 4-bedroom house for only $500 a month. When she entered the home, she had noticed a strong scent of cigarettes, but nothing that she couldn't fix. While talking to the couple, they had mentioned that they had a little girl's bedroom fully furnished, and my little sister could move right in, but that we were not allowed to remove anything in there. My mom had always shared her bed with my little sister anyways, so that was out of the question. I always thought this house had this eerie, empty feeling. One of the first nights I was walking down the stairs and my younger sister screamed because she saw a black figure of a girl following me downstairs. Ever since then, I had a feeling that the house was haunted. One day I was taking a nap upstairs when a loud bang startled me awake. My older sister came upstairs and asked if I was okay, and I told her that it wasn't me that made the loud sound. Then we saw the door to the girl's room open and then slam shut, and we were so spooked and just watched as it repeatedly kept opening and closing by itself. My sister had tried recording it on her phone, but it kept glitching, so I took out my tablet and recorded a short video, and then we ran the hell out of there. As we were leaving, it actually seemed like the spirit got even more angry by us leaving, and it then started slamming the door even harder. While living there, we had noticed the light in the little girl's bedroom would randomly turn on by itself. My mom kept seeing a random black cat sitting next to the back door, which kind of creeped me out. While cleaning the house, my mom also found 2 Ouija boards. She got so spooked that she had bought sage and tried blessing the house of any evil spirits. My mom eventually felt that the sage was useless, so we decided to just leave and find somewhere else to live, which I'm really thankful for because that house truly was really creepy, and I'm really glad we got the hell out of there. I'm currently a 38-year-old female, but from about 1989 until 2002, I lived in a house that I believe was possibly haunted. For some background, I grew up as an adopted only child with a father who was a Lutheran pastor and mother who was a homemaker. Before we moved into this house, we had lived in rural southern Illinois in a parsonage, which is just a fancy term for a home belonging to a church. It was adjacent to both a church and its accompanying cemetery. As a little girl under the age of 5, I can still completely remember the layout of this first house. I remember odd things happening in that house too. For example, the house had a den located under the stairs with the door you entered through in the kitchen. I would often take naps in this room on a sofa. I can clearly remember waking up to find small plastic trinkets and candy under my pillow every time I woke up. Being little, I never questioned it and I loved it. However, I asked both my parents many times years later who had put the trinkets and candy there, and they both looked at me like I was crazy, asking me what I was talking about. They had no reason to lie about it, and both of them seemed genuinely puzzled at this. They swore that neither one of them did it. I also remember looking out my bedroom window once as a little girl and seeing a woman in a white dress walking through the cemetery and staring up at me. If I can remember correctly, my dad had a funeral for an older woman a couple of days earlier. I don't know for sure if that was her, but I do wonder. Never once though had I ever felt afraid of anything in that first house. Once we moved into my second childhood home, I did not receive any more treats after my naps. The layout of my new house was a lot bigger than my old one. This one was 3 stories with there being 2 bedrooms on the main floor, a kitchen, a bathroom, a huge living room and dining room, and an office overlooking the front doorstep. The second floor had a bathroom with a giant storage room where we kept our Christmas stuff right next to it on the right-hand wall. 2 bedrooms connected by a long hallway. A hall closet with a secret crawl space in the back that went over the top of the living room, and another crawl space on the other side of the same bedroom, so that the hallway was in kind of a U shape, with the bathroom being at the end of the U and the stairs at the beginning. There was also a basement where we kept the laundry on one side with a second pantry, and my dad's hobby things on the other, as well as a half bathroom on the laundry side with the stairs being in the middle between them. I suppose it's normal that kids are terrified of their basement, but I was really scared of mine, and I would never turn out the light until I was at the top of the steps that led to our kitchen pantry on the left, the back door directly at the top of the stairs, and kitchen on the right. Nothing really stands out about my house from the outside, as it just looks like a nice normal brick house. But inside, there always seemed to be a dark atmosphere overshadowing the home. For starters, as a little girl, I could never sleep in my bedroom with the door closed. I was too afraid, and I would often hear breathing and noises from time to time, and just wanted the door open so I could run to my parents if I ever got scared. For a long time, I was really frightened of the upper level on the second floor. My mom used one of the bedrooms, the one closest to the bathroom and Christmas storage, as her craft room, which was often extremely messy and hard to walk around, which was due to the amount of stuff all over the floor and piled on a huge table in the center of the room. It was also where she kept a giant antique dollhouse that used to be my grandmother's. I loved playing with it, but I didn't like being upstairs by myself. The dolls that originally went with the dollhouse were the kind that had eyes that would roll back into their heads, and they really creeped me out. So I would take my own dolls and toys up there to play pretend from time to time. However, when I was up there, I couldn't hear anything downstairs at all. I would hear noises in the upstairs hallway that sounded like footsteps. If I got creeped out enough, I would dash down the hallway and run down the stairs and then not go back for a while until my fear subsided. But I would return because I always felt like something was beckoning me to come back upstairs. The older I got, the sensation grew in intensity, until one day I had finally asked my parents if I could move into the other upstairs bedroom, the one between the 2 crawl spaces. Now, some people might just think this is just a young girl's imaginations, or just normal childhood fears. But after I moved upstairs around the age of puberty, things started to get weird. Things would go missing around the house, and my parents started to blame me for misplacing or taking them when I hadn't. I couldn't stand to be in the house alone even as a teenager because the house got very creepy whenever my parents weren't around. I would be in the downstairs living room and would hear breathing and talking in my parents' bedroom closet. I thought that was very strange, and it scared me so badly that I grabbed my pet turtle and sat outside on the curb at the end of our driveway for an hour and a half until my parents finally got home. Of course, when they went into their bedroom, they couldn't find anything that could have made those noises, and they just brushed it off as me being a silly teenager. On another day, just for fun, I had knocked on the empty crawl space door. The door only connecting to the wall by way of a thin wooden plank covering the opening by strong magnets as well as a metal pull handle. When I knocked on the empty crawl space door next to my bedroom, I had started to walk away when I had heard 3 distinct knocks come from the other side of the door. This spooked me so badly that I had told my parents, who didn't even believe me, and then never touched the door again. I started to put stuff in front of the door and would dash past it every time I needed to get to my room. In my upstairs bedroom, I never ever left the bedroom door open at night because the hallway itself scared me. I would see moving shadows at night and hear those footsteps and noises outside my door, and noises even in the crawlspace attic that ran the length of the hallway outside my room. If I ever needed to go to the bathroom in the night, I would turn on my bedroom light, take my flashlight, and then dash down the hall and turn on all the lights I could just to use the toilet. I never saw any actual apparition or anything like that, but like I said, the atmosphere in that house was very dark. One time I mentioned to my dad that the noises were getting louder at night, and that it sounded like someone was running back and forth in the attic at night from end to end, and I was tired of it and it scared me. My dad, finally exasperated with me, had agreed to come up and take a look that night. While he did eventually hear the noises, he wasn't really sure what they were, but he did agree that it didn't sound like an animal, and although the church maintenance man did put some up there, nothing was ever caught, and the noises just continued for a bit longer. Now, something creepy is, in the basement there were 4 outlines of child-shaped bodies on the wall in paint. It was such a weird thing that I didn't know who had made them or why they were there. It wasn't like it was a mural or any kind of actual painting. It was just 4 child-sized shaped body outlines connected to each other with their hands close together on the basement wall, close to the basement pantry. Another thing of note was the dreams that me and my family all had. During our time in that house, I would have recurring nightmares that would be the same dream over and over again. My dad would constantly have terrible nightmares of something chasing him whenever he slept in his bedroom, and I would often have dreams of stabbing a monster in my nightmares. In 2002, my dad had suddenly died one night in his bedroom due to an unknown issue with his heart. By this time, I owned dogs, and they usually slept in the basement at night because my mom was allergic to pet dander. Well, normally the dogs were fine down there. But after my dad died and my mom threw their bed sheets downstairs to get washed, the dogs would go crazy, crying, howling, and laying all over the sheets. It was really bizarre. Not long after this, my mom and I had moved out of the church house because since my dad had died, we weren't allowed to stay there anymore. But once we moved out, I didn't have any more recurring nightmares and no further issues with any other places I've lived since then. The only other thing of note is that when my own son was in kindergarten, he would tell me about a man who would visit him at night wearing a hat. That went on for quite a while and became somewhat concerning, but we never figured out who or what he was seeing, and I never saw the man for myself. The only thing I can think of is that throughout my childhood, my dad had owned an Indiana Jones-style hat that he would wear all the time, and then maybe, just maybe, that was actually my dad coming to watch over or visit the grandson that he had never met. Who really knows for sure though? Hey everyone, that's about it for today's stories. If you have your own story that you would like to send, you can send it in at southerncannibal.com, or you can email it at southerncannibalstories@gmail.com. I look forward to telling your story. Have a good night or good day, everyone. And remember to always